Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Dementia Chats. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lori La Bey, the founder of Alzheimer Speaks, and my mom had dementia for 30 years, and that's why we do these chats. I think their voice needs to be heard and valued and listened to. And so every one of our episodes, we have different panelists, and we cover different topics, and I think you will find them very interesting and helpful. So we encourage you to pass them along. We'll go ahead and start by having everybody introduce themselves. And Paulan, if you wouldn't mind going first.
In Phoenix, Arizona. I was diagnosed with vascular dementia about 7 years ago, and I'm very involved in advocacy activities.
Thank you so much. True, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
My full legal name is Truthful Loving Kindness. My current diagnosis is still mild cognitive impairment because I'm progressing, but progressing slowly. And I'm very active blogging, administrative assistant for Dementia Mentors, DAA, TIPA Snow, and Dementia Chats.
Wonderful. Thank you, True. And Bill, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I can. I'm a doctor, an allergist, William Walsh. I have Alzheimer's dementia. I've had it for years. It became apparent to me in 2015 when I was really losing my ability to talk. And it stimulated me to make some major changes. I have written a book. I'll show it here, Retaining the Mind. I am currently in the process of finishing a second book on dementia and recovery from it. I frequently give lectures.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bill. And Mary.
Hello, I'm Mary Radnofsky. I am a former college professor and writer and ghostwriter, and I've been living with a rare hereditary form of dementia called subcortical leukoencephalopathy for about 14 years. I'm an advocate for the human rights of people with dementia, and I like writing and blogging and speaking about it as well.
Thank you, Mary. Our topic today, we're going to discuss how people with dementia feel valued, or maybe how they don't feel valued as well, so that we as care partners and individuals in our community can better understand how to lift them up and support them. And Mary, if you wouldn't mind kicking this off, I would appreciate it.
Well, I was thinking about the ways that people in the public eye very clearly get applause when they are performers, singers, dancers, entertainers, and that we actually have even a lot of television shows now where people can go on and perform either musically or artistically or in sports, and they get the applause of everyone in the audience, and so they know they're valued. But on a day-to-day level, your regular person doesn't usually get that kind of attention. And when you have dementia, you also don't have the regular support from having a job where your boss is telling you you did well or you're getting a paycheck. And so I was wondering, how can we still feel valued in the world when we don't obviously contribute to it in the ways that we used to? So I don't necessarily have all the answers, but that was the question that I was putting to myself.
So for you, when you were looking at that question, what makes you personally feel valued in your life?
Well, there's the way that we value ourselves, and then there's the way that we feel valued by external sources. So the way that I feel valued by myself is when I know that I have done something to live a good life, to make others happy, to improve my surroundings, to help someone who needs help, things like that. And the way that others seem to indicate value to me that actually matter to me is by communicating with me. Doesn't necessarily mean matter what they say, but staying in touch and staying in contact so that I still feel connected to the rest of the world.
I think you laid it out really nicely, I think, in terms of that self-value, what feels you as a person, and learning to recognize that. Because I think a lot of us go through life not really paying attention to what makes us feel good. We're just kind of on this mission to get our list done. And that's important, I think, for everyone in life to look at. But when you're dealing with dementia, probably even more so. And then you've got the people aspect in terms of the relationships and being included and feeling valued and purposeful. And then you have that project aspect of, I did a good job on this, which kind of comes back to both self and people in terms of recognition. And sometimes others might not ever know what you did, but you know that you did it. One of the things too that I like about the circle of kind of family of dementia advocates is that they do share their projects and they do share their feelings with one another. And I think that removes a lot of isolation as well, and kind of ups the bond and pushes everybody forward. And they're really open. Everyone is really open about what it is they feel is important. So it sparks interest for other people to maybe incorporate some of those things too, if it aligns with them or the groups that they're working with. And I think that a lot of times in general business is hidden because of, people want to be proprietary and they don't want to share. So it kind of breaks some rules there. And I think it helps us move mountains. Or even within family structures, sometimes, especially older generations, we don't air our dirty laundry. And an illness or something that's not controllable, people don't want to talk about. And, and that's breaking kind of that stigma too by raising this voice. And so I just find it so exciting, the work that everyone is doing together. So I appreciate the points that you made there. Anything that you want to add to that, Mary?
No, you point out that there are opportunities for people with dementia to get that public recognition and applause, and that is very important. It does reassure people that we're being heard, that our voice is being heard, and that is key.
Well, and I think one of the best ways that if it's family, if it's friends, if it's organization, you had mentioned just include me. But, let me be part of this conversation. I do have a perspective that's pretty important here, if we're going to be making change in this area, but just in life in general, that somebody with dementia isn't just dementia. They're still a person, and they still have this whole piece of as you would say, what makes them human, and that hasn't diminished. Drew, how about you? What makes you feel valued?
Probably a lot the same as what Mary was talking about. I think that it's important, feeling valued versus feeling successful can be two different things, but each person is so different in our personhood, totally aside from anything to do with dementia. And I think that it stays the same. What makes us feel valued or successful is going to stay the same through our entire life. I feel valued, I feel successful when I add up a column of numbers and then divide and do all the other things and make sure that it was all accurate. Have my systems of verification and everything is 100%. That makes me feel successful. It always has. Well, I can't do numbers anymore. But our feeling valued is a relationship thing to me. I think it's different than feeling successful. And that brings in the aspect of hugs. I mean, some of us really don't want that physical touch. And some of us just really, the more we get into the isolation, etc., the less we have it, the more we crave it. So money, hugs, feeling listened to, feeling like observing that we are listened to and that what we say is in some way applied or considered as input for something, I think is an important thing. And valued by relationship, that means relationship with self, relationship with the divine or nature or whatever that person considers to be a larger perspective. Relationship with Facebook likes. People liking and responding to what you say on Facebook can be tremendously meaningful and lots of my friends very much that really has an impact on them, because a lot of them are no longer able to go on to other people's Facebook entries. They can only go to their own little profile. They only see what they put and what you reply. And that can have a big part in them feeling valued.
That's a real interesting thing that you say. As the disease progresses and worlds get smaller, that, you know, those likes, those clicks, those shares are really small, teeny weeny things, and they take seconds to do. They have huge impact. And I think, you know, I think too, as far as advocacy goes, dementia has really leveraged social media really well. And it has, you know, I mean, I look at norms with the Purple Angel. People, it's never going to happen, and we don't even know how many countries it's in, and truly how many ambassadors there are, and people using it, because it's just blasted out there. You know, the web is really a spider's web, and it just keeps going and crawling, and nothing ever dies. I know I was on page the other day that I'm helping manage for Mara Botanis, When Caring Takes Courage, and she had done a post, oh gosh, it was a couple years ago, and I just love the saying. It was just a meme, and that thing has like just relived and reblossomed all over with the likes and the shares, and I'm just like, holy mackerel, this thing is just going all over again, because it's important. You know, it's a I can't remember what the saying was, but go ahead, True.
I wanted to mention that I make efforts to note when people with dementia write, and I'll try to make a page on my blog, etc. And I've had like 2 or 3 now say, this is wonderful. I have new purpose in life. I can help people. And that feeling valued of seeing what they wrote out on the web, especially if there are any responses. But I also wanted to mention that probably half of the people that I stay in contact with on Facebook do not go to any other page on Facebook except for their own profile.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, and I've noticed in the 10 years I've been doing this, in terms of working with people with dementia, the comment has come up over and over again that through advocacy with dementia, they've never felt a purpose like this before in life. You know, this is the first time they've really felt this level of purpose and almost a contentment with, wow, I can make a difference in the world. Who would have thought? And I've got dementia, you know, to boot, but that's what put them in that realm to discover that. And I think that that's a fascinating thing too. Bill, I'm going to go down to you next, and if you wouldn't mind sharing what makes you feel valued.
Helping people helps me. Yes, I feel very valued when I'm helping people.
True, go ahead.
And it sounds like my husband. He has he's retired, then he's got a job here, then he's got a job there, he's got a job somewhere else. He's currently just quit 2 jobs. But like him, it sounds like part of your feeling of value is your occupation or where you are working at the current moment and what you are doing in that work that is recognized in the workforce.
I agree with that.
But I wanted to add that volunteering is also a very rewarding activity. And when I first was diagnosed, that is where I aimed a lot of my efforts, volunteering to work with children in museums or in the community and things like that. And I know a lot of us get that anyway, that we did that anyway, but it does fill out a lot of people's time when they don't know what at first to do with their time if they retire or something. And then as we get older and live with it longer, as all of us have lived with it for many, many years now, we find other even more rewarding ways of fulfilling ourselves.
Great. Bill, anything you want to add?
No, thanks.
Okay. Paulan, how about you?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I feel valued in a lot of ways. I have a lot of opportunities for feeling valued. Being a mentor in Dementia Mentors is a tremendous opportunity for feeling valued. It's helping someone else, and when they come to you and they say, "Oh, I didn't know what to do when you were gone, and I missed you so much," and things like that. It really is a wonderful feeling. So the mentoring program is a wonderful opportunity to feel valued. And I've written a book called Vascular Dementia: An Inside Perspective. When I see every month when I see the royalties come, there are not a lot of royalties, but the little bit of royalties I see, it's rewarding. It's very rewarding to think that, and I see the reviews and I think, well, this is wonderful that people are enjoying what I'm writing. So that's another way that I feel very valued. Giving speeches, and right now I do get a small fee for the speeches I give. The rest goes to Dementia Action Alliance, but that's just a little acknowledgement of your worth, and hearing that people respond when you give a speech, that's tremendously validating. So I have a lot of opportunities to feel valued.
Can you explain? Oh, go ahead, True, and then I'll ask my question.
I totally agree, and that's a thing about writing too. You feel so, or many of us feel validated simply knowing that what we wrote is being read, even without any responses. Just knowing it's being read, it fulfills that sense of value for a lot of us. I don't know that it does for everyone because everyone's different, but it can be very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I'll add on to True's with the writing is, again, with social media, that's how people are writing so much of their stuff now. It never dies. It's out there. And I mean, even like my old radio shows, blog posts, dementia chats, it shocks me that people go back 10 years on some of this stuff. And it's like, wow, it's found a new life again. And then it spins off in a different way. But there's something pretty, it's cathartic just in healing, just to put your words out for yourself. But then when you share them and when they just kind of have this life of their own and you let it go, it's really very interesting to watch. Pauline, I was going to ask if you wouldn't mind, because some people in our audience might not know what Dementia Mentors is.
Sure. Dementia Mentors is a program whereby somebody who has been diagnosed for a while is matched up with someone who is newly diagnosed with a similar diagnosis. And we basically meet once a week on Zoom or on the telephone or whatever works out to be the best communication. And we just I just offer support to the individuals that I'm mentoring. We talk about the problems they're having, the challenges they're facing with their dementia. We talk about ways to accommodate, disabilities. We talk about a lot of things like that.
Thank you. True?
I might add that it's kind of a three-pronged thing. There's the videos that we do. There are short 3 to 4 minute videos on the website, dementiamentors.org. And the individual mentoring, which provides the one-on-one, more individual time that you can talk about things that you don't really want to talk about in public, and you can feel fine to talk the whole time. Don't worry about taking other people's time. Or there's the groups. We have group meetings most weekdays, and the videos. So it's kind of a three-pronged thing.
Okay, thank you. Paula, anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that covered it.
Okay. One of the things in terms of value, and you hit up on your royalties and, being paid for getting an honorarium for speeches. And I think sometimes that is very overlooked when in the realm of dementia. And I know I've been one screaming and shouting forever that we need to have more voices heard at conferences and various things, but that they also need to be compensated, and or at least asked if they'd like to be compensated, because there are budgets for that. And what people don't understand, I think many times, is you might be retired and not working, but a lot of times you're not retired because you wanted to. You've been forced to, and money can get tight. And again, having a job and feeling valued is what they're doing in their life. And sometimes people, I think, just take for granted that you don't need the money, or it's just not that important, instead of really having a conversation, because so many of those things where we have found value have gone away. I mean, you look at anybody who, dementia or not, who is retired, most will say they feel a little lost because they don't know how they're valued. They don't know what their identity is anymore. And those are things that people, when they have a chronic illness, are going through. They're recalculating their life and who they are and what is possible. And so by asking people to speak definitely adds value from what I'm hearing from you. But to offer an honorarium gives another level to it as well. And to promote, because sometimes I think in these conferences, they might ask you to speak, but they're not really promoting that this, I don't want to say this type of person, but I'm going to say that, is speaking. And I think that we need to reach another level going, hey, we've got an actual voice of a person living with dementia, and they really are the true expert out there, even though they might not have the degrees behind them that a lot of times are the ones that get lifted up as keynotes or trainers. There's a lot of value here. So I think there's many different levels in terms of recognitions. True, you had a comment?
Well, it was two-pronged, and I got one of them written down, but I forgot the other one. So one was the tokenism, that yes, they give you an opportunity to speak, but either they tailor, no, you can't talk about Dementia Mentors, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. You can only talk about your diagnosis. Well, that leaves off so much of what makes you successful living with your diagnosis. So that tokenism is emphasized when people say, yeah, can you come speak? Oh, no, we have no money, not even to cover your transportation. So then that's it. Then you feel used. There's a difference, but sometimes it can be a very balanced beam between feeling valued and feeling used.
I think those are really good points. Mary?
I think that's a really good observation. And I think it goes to the heart of one of the problems with dementia is very often our ability to judge accurately a social situation and to read cues in social situations, physical cues, verbal cues, environmental cues, and everybody does it differently. And we filter it through our personal experiences. So even if the cues are there, we're filtering it through what we've just gone through in the last few minutes, the last few months, the last few years, and then geographically where we are. So when our situation changes and we know that we are no longer our same status, whether it was a doctor or a businesswoman, we know that people are reacting to us differently if our titles change, things like that. And so when someone does want us to do something for them, it's not completely clear whether they want us to do it for the betterment of society or the betterment of the project or the betterment of the program or the family or whatever it happens to be, or if they want us to do it to simply glorify them, so that in comparison they'll look good compared to us, or that if we are willing to do something to help them out, well, we're naive enough to do it, and then we get that sense of being used. And when they no longer need us, then they don't contact us anymore, for example, or they don't invite us to the next thing. And so there is that feeling of where I belong. So I think it's a really good observation.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I do feel that this happens because there's been more voices about, hey, people with dementia need to be heard at conferences and need to be incorporated into trainings and different things. And I have seen this going out, around the country, is sometimes they're invited and they're invited to fill that gap, to say they did it, but it's not taken seriously, or the words aren't incorporated. It's just a check on a box. And that happens with all of us in life. Sometimes we're just fillers to make it look like somebody's complying, maybe with a movement or an urgency, but it truly isn't incorporated. And so when you feel like what you've done is actually being heard, and people are actually moving forward with your information and making changes, which one or a couple of you had said, I mean, that's a whole nother level of value, I would think, that you get, because now you're seeing a project moving forward, or that I helped make this happen. I helped them see things differently.
On a visual level, you very often see it in political ads and things where a politician will surround him or herself with people of color just to make it seem like he or she is diverse, and yet those voices don't actually get heard. So there's parallels to it without having dementia, of course.
Exactly. True? You had a comment?
And it's gone. Oh, I remember. I have worked for the last 6 years compiling a database, a spreadsheet. In other words, a bunch of columns and rows of people's projects, people with dementia, their projects, written, video, whatever, art projects, music projects. I've got, 5,000 of them, probably. And I'm a year behind in adding because I'm doing one every day, but it's not getting added on the matrix. But I have made that, I have said, talked publicly about that matrix at a conference, online, etc. And I've had a couple offers of, we can use this in this and we can use this in that. But you know what? Every time is to make them money. It isn't to value what is said. I'm not interested in making anybody money, myself included. I want to have the voice valued.
And I get that, and yet in a business world, that's really the only way it's going to work, for them to put something out, to design something. I mean, even as you were saying that, I was thinking, oh gosh, that would be really good for the Dementia Resource Directory there, because they're looking for content. And again, they're looking to sell things, but they're also looking to be pretty economical so that it's usable. And so they have content from NIH and Mayo Clinic are contributors, but it would be cool to have that voice. But again, it would be something that would be monetized eventually, but it would also be able to getting the word out, because it's something that they want everybody to have access to. So families would be able to get things for free, and businesses would pay a very low amount, so it's workable and usable. And yet, they've had problems in terms of getting people to finance, and what they've put together is really cool, but it's taken years, and they've got a couple of billion into it already, and just endless hours of time. But it's trying to pull all those things together, because it is a critical piece, and they understand that. But and so it's kind of that double-edged sword of how do you do that, because you can collect something, and yet if you can't get it out to help as many people as you'd like, go ahead, True.
And another aspect is the longer the time goes, I mean, these are online links. Okay, a lot of Richard Taylor's links, almost all of Richard Taylor's links that I had for Richard Taylor are gone. A lot, as we die, unless we've got, and that'd be a good subject for another one sometime, is what we've got in place for afterwards in this way. But the things that people have written, their projects are disappearing. So yeah, I've got 6,000 links, but a lot of the oldest ones are now gone.
Sad. That's sad. Go ahead, Mary.
And that too, True, is why I'm focused on capturing the history and trying to somehow just crystallize that knowledge so that it doesn't get lost. And I think when we do that, and when we honor those who came before us, I think that might be our legacy of being able to show that what they did was valued, whether or not it gets published, whether or not it gets used for in sales or published online and things like that. But really what's of value is that it gets remembered. And that's part of my personal tradition, part of my family history, part of my spiritual beliefs, is that we remember. and that these things not get lost. And we have the ways of doing it. Now, true, the links might be gone right now, but the original works still can be researched and found somewhere, either through family or other things. And I think that's a worthwhile endeavor.
I think that that's really interesting. The other thing, when you're talking about kind of capturing this history is not only honoring people, but I think what it does is it gets people to believe they too can make a difference. Because you know what? Everybody was just a Joe Blow. They were just an average Joe out there on the street that did some powerful things because they believed it could change. And they knew that it needed to, and they had the courage to move forward. So, to me, like when I go out and speak about dementia, I don't have a training program or anything like that. I think what I'm good at doing is getting people to believe. And I think those real stories and the real voices and people even watching, things like Dementia Chats go, wow, that looks like my friend. That's not what I thought dementia looked like, and then hearing these people speak articulately, and it just changes everything. It makes people realize, oh, I guess I really don't know much about this. I need to learn more. And even just using the word hidden disability, I think people aren't familiar with that term. You guys are a prime example of that people can look at a person with dementia and not know, or same with a person with diabetes, or there's so many different variables. You can go on and on, but it's really about, in addition to gathering that history, which I think is really important, in that legacy of, how did this grow? How did this expand? How did people do this? And people having that ability, it really gives hope of change. And I think that's something the world really needs badly right now. Bill, you're kind of smirking down there. What are you thinking?
I'm very impressed with the troubles that people have got, our guests here, our friends here, have gone through in giving their talks. I think that their talks would be excellent. I know I enjoy listening to them now. I don't run into that sort of trouble because I imagine because I'm a doctor and an author, and so people just ask me to talk, and I talk for as long as they give me to talk. But I can see where other people would be troubled. I myself have had trouble getting going because obviously you don't think of somebody who is an allergist talking about dementia until you realize that he's got it himself and that he's been diagnosing and treating these people who have food reactions for 40 years. So it's a problem I have not run into, and I appreciate that the information that you have to give is marvelous, and I hope that people accept it.
Thank you, Bill. Paulan, how about you? Any comments? You've been kind of quiet over there too.
No, I think that it's a lot of self-pride. I think that's where a lot of the acknowledgement comes from. It's just a sense of inside purpose, that you're doing what is good stuff, and it's just a sense of personal pride.
That's a great comment, and I think one that anybody with dementia or without dementia could utilize. I think sometimes we get so soaked up into, do others value me? Am I doing good? Or, because you can have that one odd duck in a whole group. You can have 100 people, applauding you and patting you on the back, and there's that one person you're like, why didn't I get them? Why, if we focus on, I wasn't good enough, right? I didn't get them. And something that I guess in this path for me, it's taught me is I have to let go of those moments and go, okay, you're never going to reach everybody. You just got to plug along and believe in what you're doing. And when you see the signs that your work is effective or listen to, really take that in and just keep moving forward, because none of us are ever going to please everybody in the world. But the more we align with people who believe like us, the stronger we get. and the faster we can make progress. True?
I think probably one of the most powerful moments of feeling valued for me was 2 years ago at the first DAA conference after I spoke, and someone came up that was in charge of a number of facilities. And I was speaking specifically about Lewy body hallucinations and how it impacted the day, how it impacted blah, 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 and she says, that was the most important thing I have ever heard for the facilities that I'm working at, that I'm in charge of. And I thought, wow, that made my world, so valued.
All it takes is that one person. And I think that's another thing that we learn going through this journey, is that when we do find something of value, I think people get better at acknowledging that, instead of just, because a lot of times in life, I think we value things, but we don't stop and say, we don't make a comment, we don't say thank you. And I guess I found with people with dementia appreciate being valued more, and so they're able to give that out more too, realizing that others need that encouragement. And again, I think that's something that we've lost in this fast-paced world, is slowing down and just saying thanks, or that was really a nugget, I can use that. And everyone's going to pick up different nuggets at different times, but knowing how important our individual voices are to others, to say, good job, thank you, that was important. I mean, that takes 2 seconds to do, and there's really no excuse not to do it. It's just we've been really kind of trained to not communicate well. We're just on this train going 160 miles an hour, and we're not valuing relationships, and we're not valuing resources a lot of times that are in front of us. We're missing opportunities to connect on a deeper level, and maybe having a conversation like when the person came up to True and say, gosh, that was great. We're missing the chance by not saying thank you to even have a deeper conversation, and and build on that and move forward. So good point. Mary, anything that you would like to add?
No, I think you've touched upon really everything that's important. I know that it doesn't need to be in a professional realm, even though many of us were professionals. On a very personal level, when you hug a child, when you soothe a crying baby, when you relate to someone who's in line behind you and just share a laugh. All of these I also find very rewarding. And even if momentarily they bring that little piece of joy and humanity to me, I find that something that I can hold on to. And so I think we need to appreciate what happens in the moment. We live much more in the moment, and to appreciate those sparkling little moments is a real joy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the beauties of, and one of the hidden gifts of dementia, is you help the rest of the world recognize those moments, appreciate those moments, revel in those moments, because you're the ones that show us we might not have those moments at any time. And so to me, that's one of the biggest gifts, is teaching us to slow down and to appreciate what we do have in our life, because so often we focus on what we don't have. With that, I think we will make this a wrap. Oh, go ahead, True.
It occurred to me that many of my friends really, what makes them feel valued is family, and the family connection. All the rest can be there, but if the family connection isn't there, they do not feel valued, because for them, family is the string that holds them. And I think sometimes that needs to be considered in the mix.
Good point. Good point. Family and friends are very, very important to most everybody. And again, you want to be part of that tribe still. You want to have input and purpose within that, and not just be taken care of, because you can still care for others in maybe different ways than what you did, but it's still possible. And for people to look at the possibilities and the gifts that each of us has, and that will constantly change as we age. So anybody else have anything else they'd like to say? Okay. Well, then with that, I think we will wrap it up. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it.